an unusual state of consciousness for still the majority of the population on the planet, becoming comfortable with the present moment. Sounds very simple and is very simple. But to the complicated and complicating mind, it's the most difficult thing. Because the mind immediately asks, how do I do that? It equates becoming comfortable with the present moment with some kind of doing. Not realizing that becoming comfortable with the present moment concerns being, which is prior to any doing and more vitally important. And you can't really reach being, not reach, become aware of being by any kind of doing. It's prior to any doing, the very foundation. Well, that's a relief. We don't need to do anything. We can just be. Now, to the mind, that's almost meaningless. Or it will immediately ask, what do you mean, just be? If I just be, I'll never do anything again. Of course, that's not the case. Becoming comfortable with the present moment is becoming comfortable with who you are right now, the essence of who you are, not some thought structure that tells you who you are, but something more vital. The aliveness of who you are, that which underlies any thought structure or any thought movement, that is already there. We can use different pointers to point to that, but it has to be a realization in you now, not a conceptual thing, not based on conceptual understanding, a deeper realization of your very presence here. That is prior to thoughts that arise out of that. So we need to be very careful with words. I say, can you sense the presence that you are? One could say, as a little pointer. And the answer to that then requires no thinking. You can't say, oh, let me think whether I can sense the presence that I am. Let me think about that. No, can't. Of course you can't. Through thinking, no. It's only for a moment. Thinking must come to a stop. There's a cessation in the stream of thinking. For example, now. In that cessation of the stream of thinking, don't worry, you're going to think again after that. You're not going to abdicate all that your critical abilities and all the accumulated knowledge. It's all going to still be there. Okay, so that's okay then. You don't have to worry about that. But in that moment of cessation of thinking, what is left? Like now, I do this because by moving my hands in this way, I'm opening up that space, so to speak, symbolically, or maybe even energetically, who knows. Opening up that space where there's A moment of cessation of thinking and just being, presence, awareness, without content. And you are still yourself. You have not lost your identity, although you don't remember, in that moment you don't remember your past, or not even your phone number, not even your name or your address. You don't remember it in that moment. You don't need to know who you are. You don't need to remember what happened to you when you were a little child, or what happened to you in your last marriage, to tell you who you are. So there's an essence of identity here that is not based on past or anything that happened to you in the past, any story in your mind. Because the memory, your past consists of stories in the mind and perhaps some emotional reactions to the stories in the mind. And yet that's not where does the sense of the preciousness of who you are, that the thing that nobody wants to lose, there's a deep, some kind of deep realization that there's something precious that I am, and that's people think I'm going to lose that, I'm going to lose my life. But of course you can't lose your life because you are life. It's only because the mind has created a duality between life and me that you think you can lose your life. Here's me and I have a life. No. Because without life, who is there? There can't be anybody without life. You are life. It's a mind-created duality that creates a lot of fear and misperception. I am life. So can you sense the life that you are prior to anything that form, any thought movement prior to that, of the life? I am, that's the mystical I am. Beingness, presence, awareness, consciousness, these are just pointers to it. And it's joyful to know yourself as that, rather than the problematic personality that, of course, we also all still carry around with us. Everybody carries around a problematic personality and life situation. But that is not the essence of who you are. If that obscures the essence of who you are, then you're lost in the world, in your mind, which is the world, because you only know the world through the mind. So it's quite liberating. You are not that which you carry around with you in your mind, or even in your emotional field. Prior to that, there's something more vital. I am, presence. The light of consciousness itself, which is ultimately divine, although I try to avoid too much of that terminology, but it is. So here we are here to realize that right now. So simple. We don't need to do anything to be who we are. Let's put it into the first person. I don't need to do anything to be who I am. So there is already a fullness there. And you don't need to even be deserving to be who you are, or do this or that. There is already the fullness of being there, here, there, And the rest is the play of form, playing around with creating forms, moving about the world, enjoying it. So fearfully, quite a few people have been asking whether the world is coming to an end in a couple of years or so, 2012. Now, I have a little message for the future. The future which doesn't exist except as the present moment. So here's the message. It's for the person who is watching us here, a recording of this in the year 2013. And that person who is watching this in the present moment, of course, it's not the future at all, because there is no future ever. As an experience, you can't experience the future. So here's, hello, 2013. You already know that the world didn't end, right? Okay. Or perhaps all the recordings are going to dissolve in the year 2012. I don't often make predictions for the future for the simple reason that in ultimate terms there is no future. Only in conventional terms there is a future. There are different levels. So we can all, just to exemplify what I've just said, in ultimate terms there is no future, in conventional terms there is a future. You can verify that for yourself. In conventional terms, we are here for a certain period of time, and then we're going to walk out of here and take a break, have a cup of tea. So that's going to happen. It looks like the future. That's conventional reality. In ultimate terms, you will never experience what I just described as the future. The only way you can experience what I just described, spending some time here and then walking out of here and taking a cup of tea, you can only experience that in the present moment, never as the future. There is no such thing as experiencing the future. Future is never here. It's only ever in the mind. So that's just so that we don't need to philosophize about that, because it's so immediately obvious that there is, in ultimate terms, no future. Because otherwise you could actually say, oh, here it is. This applies to the past too, but let's not go there now. Okay, so nevertheless, I'll make a prediction now. Conventional reality prediction about the end of the world. Everybody who is on this planet alive now, billions of people, everybody, is going to be wiped out within the next 80 or 90 years. Everybody. It's a dreadful thing. A complete extermination of all humans who are on this planet now, within a few years ultimately. Let's be generous and say, okay, 90. Well, there may be a few little children who make it to 100 years from now, but that's it. Oh, well, the mind says, yes, but there will be others who are born. Tomorrow's people will be born and they will still be around a day later. Well, that's true, but again, talking in conventional terms, that doesn't help you, does it? It's just a comforting thought in your head. There'll be others after me. Okay, big deal, but you'll be gone. And everybody else wiped off the planet, gone through some dreadful disease. And it's called death. And associated with it, old age, sickness, accidents. Wow. So that's the end of the world, as far as you are concerned. It's not that dreadful, is it? I saw a science fiction film some years ago, but it might have been Star Trek, I'm not sure what it was. There was a time traveler, and the time traveler arrived from the so-called future, arrived in present day somewhere on the planet. In order to witness it, they found out, they met him and they realized he came from the future, and then he was explaining, reluctantly he gave them the reason why he had arrived from the future, and he had arrived to witness some kind of disaster that was going to happen in a couple of days or so that would kill millions of people, and he was there just as an interested observer, because there were historical records in the future about this disaster that killed millions of people, and they said, well, we have to, maybe we can prevent it. They said to him, we have to do something, and he said, no, there's no way you can prevent it. He said, and they asked him, don't you want to do something about it? He said, no, because you're all dead already. To him, because he came from another time period, so to speak, everybody who was here was already had died a long time ago. He was visiting the past. Why am I telling that story? Because the life of form is so short-lived, fleeting, ephemeral, and whatever other words I can find in the dictionary. The life of form is so impermanent that it might be a good idea to think of yourself as dead already. I'm basically, there's so little left that it's already over. Is that a negative thing? Well, perhaps to the mind. But basically, I'm giving you that not as a literal thing, something to believe in. I not believe that you're dead already. No, it's just a suggestion of an attitude to life, which it's a relinquishment of attachment to the forms of life, including the physical form of the body and whatever other forms you experience around you as your life. When you feel yourself that it's so short, this life, it doesn't really matter that much what happens here. You detach from the forms, and there comes a liberation when you're dead already. For example, one way of being dead already is not to judge what happens, because if you're dead already, you don't need to judge what happens. And that's a great liberation. you're here, and they say, oh, okay, I'm dead already, it doesn't matter. You don't judge what happens, and with not judging what happens, something in you dies. What is it that dies? The one that judges. The personality part of you that lives through reaction and judgment, that wants to keep itself alive, that wants to continuously assert itself as me, I'm still here alive. And the more you react against something, the more you feel yourself as your form identity, psychological form, even physical form. Sometimes when people are very reactive, you can see how they emphasize even their physical presence. In an argument or whatever. So or when they get angry, this is where the old TV series, The Incredible Hulk, is based on that. You get angry, your form gets inflated. And some people would love that. This is why they love watching The Incredible Hulk. They're even now still replaying it on TV. This person, when he gets angry, he gets huge. Wow, and he can very powerful. Oh, everybody wants that. So there's a egoic need to emphasize your form identity. Physical form, but more importantly, psychological, the psychological form of me. So when you can be reactive about complaining about this or that, looking for something, the critical thing, disagreeing, and identifying with your mental positions, then you strengthen the psychological form of the me. That basically means you're definitely not dead. You want to emphasize that you are here as the form. And the more you emphasize your form, in ancient Chinese Taoist philosophy, I think they have the image of the mountain and the image of the valley. Now, most people want to be mountains. And that is, you emphasize your form identity. And the more you emphasize your form identity, your psychological form identity, the me, the more you lose touch with your essence identity, that which is beyond form, that which is formless, that which you could call the valley, the depths of who you are, beyond the personality, the little personality. Even the big personalities, the VIP personalities, are really all little me's, just inflating, being inflated for a little while until they're wiped off the planet sometime between now and 90 years' time. All with a little pinprick, they all get deflated by death. What I'm saying is threatening to the form identity, but is comforting, and something else within you, it actually feels liberating. It's the liberation from form identity. And that's a wonderful thing. And so, when I say you're already dead, or you can go through life as if you were already dead, all that means is you can be here as a deeper presence than just the defined presence of the personality and the mind, the egoic self. There can be a depth to who you are. So that which dies, that is the form, because only a form can dissolve. The form dies. Death is a form dissolving. So this is here to be experienced as an actual experience. What does it, can you experiment with that in daily life and go through life as someone who is already dead? And this is just a way of putting it. Non-judgment of the present moment. That's all, just the present moment. Just let it be. Let it be as it is, because it is already. Then you don't emphasize, if you don't react against it, you don't emphasize the me, you become the valley, deep. So through relinquishment of reactivity, you become what you already are, which is deep, but you didn't know it. Depth arises. And that depth is more than just depth, it's just a word. There's intelligence there. There's aliveness there. Wisdom. Out of that depth, life arises. Forms can arise out of that depth. You become a different entity when you access the dimension of depth in you. Now the entire world still, whatever you watch on TV, you very hardly ever hear of that. Maybe very late at night at 2 o'clock they might put something on. Or probably not. When that gets activated, you become a different entity, you embody a completely different energy here. You become connected with something that is deeper than, it's your own depths, and yet goes beyond what is yours. You connect with the very depths of life itself. And of course that is the life that is eternal. It's not the forms of life, because you no longer need to emphasize the form of me. Then you can begin to sense that which is beyond form in you. And it is peaceful, it is powerful. It then, that gives you, that substitutes. I may talk some other time about, often people ask about self-esteem, and I may talk about that some other time. But that becomes what in conventional reality is called self-esteem, which is, in conventional reality, self-esteem means you compare yourself to others mentally and you're not that bad. There are many who are worse than you. That's the basis for self-esteem, is you have to compare yourself. I'm actually quite good at that and better than most, so that gives you yourself. Nothing wrong with that, it's conventional reality. I'm not saying, and I certainly wouldn't tell a child who suddenly was able to do something and is proud of doing that, say, don't do that. No, that's all fine. But at some point, we graduate and we go beyond that conventional reality where we no longer need to derive our sense of value or worthiness from the fact that we, in some areas, are better than others, this or that, or others are worse off than we are, or we have achieved more than others, because that always comes in. To have, on that level, to have self-esteem, you need to compare yourself, and you need others who are less than you. That's fine, it's a temporary thing. Eventually humans are meant to go beyond that and to arrive at a place of value or worthiness that is infinitely deeper than anything that self-esteem in conventional terms could give you. But it is not based on comparison. It is not based on being better than somebody else and others being worse than you. It comes out of a non-conceptual place. It is the preciousness and the power of life itself, of which you, as this physical body are only just a temporary expression, a temporary manifestation. But that which underlies the temporary manifestation is eternal. It is the one. It is life itself. The one becomes the many, or seems to become the many in this reality, but remaining at the core of each being as the one. You are that. And so that is, you can then sense how precious you are, and that instead of self-esteem, I don't know whether I would still call that self-esteem. We probably need a different word for this now. Whatever. I said precious, so why not say preciousness of at the core. There was a movie recently called Precious. I haven't seen it yet. It's about this young girl who does not look attractive, but what I believe the movie is about is covering that although the external side may not be attractive, there is a preciousness in her. Maybe her name is precious, but really what it points to, I believe, is the preciousness in all that is hiding in each form. So to sense that, then once you sense that, you don't need to compare yourself to others to get some sense of uplift, or in some cases feel downtrodden because you definitely have less money than those people and definitely are not as good as this and then those experts, or definitely whatever, not as glamorous as the people in People magazine. And you do not need, as some people live through fictitious stories in their mind of how great they are. To combat an underlying feeling of insufficiency, they have to say, I'm the unrecognized genius. I'm so great, I've never created anything because I'm beyond all that. I'm far greater than any genius who ever lived. You could do that as a story to combat an underlying feeling of not being good enough, and then you will attack everybody else. Whatever it is, all that is based on mind movement. And even if it has a basis in reality, maybe you are the greatest musician in the world or whatever, or you are. But if you are truly a creative being, then it is more likely that you will have humility about it, because you realize you didn't create it, not you as the person created it. It was given to you. You became an instrument for that. It arose out of the depths of your being and then took form. And you know full well that you cannot say, I did that, because the moment you said, I did that, it would lead to a blockage, because you emphasize the form identity. You can only then continue to be creative by being in touch with that, not emphasizing the form. In some artists and other creative people, there is a fight between form identity, trying to take credit, and then the creative impulse or the creative moment in which that is relinquished, and then the creation comes through. So some people some creative people are schizophrenic almost between the egoic identity wanting to take credit, and then again the power coming through them. And some people get destroyed by the conflict between the two. It doesn't have to be like that. Some creative people remain humble. The great example is Albert Einstein, who just was the most simple person, humble person. He didn't identify with what he created. He didn't even think of himself as so great. He said, it's absurd what people think of me. It has no basis in reality. And he said things, I'm just slower than others, so I take more time dwelling on these questions. And he was able to go into stillness, go for long walks. Not a stressed out researcher. Okay, we have to meet these deadlines now. No, he had a boring job in the patent office, and so because he had a boring job, he had no deadlines, he was able just to, and then in his spare time he went for walks, and then it came. Oh. It came to him. So the end of the world then is something really not that bad. It's something that can happen within you. Let the end of the world be inside you, then you don't need to fear the end of the world out there. And if more and more people live as if they were dead already, which means not living through ego anymore, not living through attachment to form anymore, then actually, paradoxically, the world is going to improve because it'll reflect your state of consciousness. Now, you may know that there have always been movements, millennial movements or whatever they're called, that predicted the end of the world. And whenever there's something on television about predictions about the end of the world, many people watch it, or books that are published continuously about the end of the world. People, for some reason, people love that. There's fear, but there's more than fear. There's something draws them to the end of the world. They want to know more. Oh, when is it going to happen? Why is that? You can perhaps even observe it in yourself sometimes when you see on TV at 10 o'clock they're going to talk about the end of the world that had been predicted for a long time. Okay, let's watch that. Why? What is it? There is something inside humans that actually longs for that. There's another side that fears it. But there's one side that loves to hear about it. It wants, when is it coming? Because there is a promise there almost that the forms that seem to be so limiting in your life, all the problems, when the end of the world there's no more IRS. That's one thing that happens, part of the end. Wow. Wall Street, gone. Stock market, gone. Everything, your mortgage, no longer relevant. Your battles in your office dissolve. All the problems with your wife or husband dissolve. All the problematic things in the world of form dissolve. All that which people regard as a limitation on them, because in everybody's life, everybody has a life situation, has certain circumstances surrounding them that are perceived as limiting. You can, in some areas of your life, temporarily open up certain perceived limitations so that your life expands. But even if your life expands in this or that area, that expansion also, if you flow into that expansion, you will come up suddenly against a new set of limitations that are part of that expansion. If you become wealthy, then okay, that brings expansion into your life, and then it brings concern and worry about your investments, especially if they are in certain derivatives. The long and the short and all that, whatever. Then the concern comes in. There's a limitation. Oh my God. Or you become famous, and then that restricts your anonymity. You can't move freely anymore. People look at you all the time. I didn't want that. I wanted expansion. Well, you got expansion, and that expansion gave you a new limitation. Or you make so much money you can satisfy any desire almost immediately, any physical sensory pleasure. You can go anywhere. Okay, I want to get away from here. Where can I? Okay, let's get on your own little jet or big jet, and you go off the next day free again, another place, another island, and then you sit there, and a few more days you see there's certain things that are not quite right. It's a little bit too hot, and the air conditioning isn't working properly, the mosquitoes are biting. Okay, we need to get somewhere else. Wherever you go, eventually you find, even on the beach, after a few weeks or months, you find that paradise on the beach becomes a limitation, because it's not interesting enough anymore. You become dumb, you become a beach bum, and you thought it was freedom. Every day lie in the sun, I made it. And then after a few weeks you kind of know it's a limitation again. So you cannot escape limitations in the world of form. I'm not saying you shouldn't make an effort to expand your life. That's part of the play of form. It's beautiful. But do not believe that you can achieve realization of who you are or freedom through that, a sense of the rootedness in being, true peace, alive peace, not the dead peace. You can't get there through the world of form. So where limitations can only be transcended internally, ultimately. You can play around with, otherwise, it's beautiful, play around, but internally, transcendence is possible. And some people had to encounter the most severe limitations on their lives through physical disability, complete loss, had to encounter in whatever area, severe limitations on their lives, prison cell, to realize that there is a freedom within where limitations can be transcended through non-judgment of the present moment, non-reaction. Reaction is unconscious. Response, yes. Reaction is against. Through bringing that openness, the yes to what is, the internal yes, not necessarily a verbal yes, but as in the inner attitude of being one with the present moment, that opens up in you that which is beyond form, and there you transcend limitations, and there's freedom. And that's what being dead means. Dead to the world. It's not a negative thing at all. You are much more alive when you're dead. Much more alive. And you are much more powerful when you are a valley than when you are a mountain. The mountain aspect of you, by mountain we mean the form identity, of course you have that for a while anyway, you don't have to worry about that. Yes, you have a form, okay. Be the valley while you are walking around as if you were a mountain. And that's peace. That's inner peace. You walk around this world, which is not peaceful, as an energy field of peace. Not the peace that has abdicated consciousness and said, okay, I'm going to go back into semi-consciousness. desensitize myself and go back into the vegetative realm, and be peaceful in that way. There could be an escape also from the world of form. I'm at peace now. Peace. That's the state you can also encounter just before you go to sleep, in that last few moments. Something pulls you, something very sweet that we call tiredness. Tiredness is something, we think we know what it is because we have a name for it and it's so common. But there's something very, what is that? And you say, I'm tired. It means there's a pull, you're being pulled from within. That pull gets stronger and stronger. And that pull can get so strong that you'd rather give up your life than resist it. People who get lost in the wilderness, they will lie down in the snow knowing that they're never going to wake up again, but the pull becomes so strong. Now, in conventional terms, we say they're so tired they have to go to sleep. But what is tiredness? It becomes so sweet wanting to go there. You can tonight have a look, have a feel, to stay conscious and feel the pull, how sweet it is to go into sleep. Just as you enter sleep, feel the sweetness of sleep. And there are no problems there. Now, am I saying that's where we are going? No. But it's one way. You're going below thought to the one. Our destiny is to go beyond thought and then reach the one consciously. Reach it, be realizing that you are it, but consciously. So the sweetness of being is there when you go into sleep. It's so beautiful. After a long day, you lie in bed and go, no more problems. You're going below thinking into that beautiful sweetness of being. And here the evolutionary impulse of the universe is to encounter that consciously, to be one with that consciously. Which is the dead state. Because when you go into dreamless sleep, you're virtually dead. You don't exist as a person anymore. Temporarily you unite with the source and then you come out again. But it is our destiny to consciously unite with the source. Don't ask me why. I know that it is. It's our destiny to consciously unite with the source of who we are. And you can only do that if you go around as if you were already dead. Because dead means it's the formless. No more. Death is just the dissolution of forms, but death ultimately is already life. So that's why we have the old saying, the ancient saying, die before you die. Die before you die. Or we could, in some traditions, say, find death before death finds you. Because death will find you. And if you find death before death finds you, in Christian terms, Jesus' teaching, you find what he called eternal life. Now, eternal, of course, means not it goes on and on. It means timeless. If eternal meant it goes on and on, it would become very boring. It would become a limitation. in heaven you would be, after a while you say, I don't want to be in heaven anymore, maybe there's more going on in hell. There was a song somebody played to me some years ago by a music band, I don't remember the name, but the title of the song was Heaven, the place where nothing ever happens. So find death before death finds you. Beautiful. Eternal life, of course, the teaching of Jesus has been misunderstood. First of all, they interpret it as being something that you're going to find it in the future, where after you die you find eternal life. And then eternal was interpreted as everlasting. There are even some translations of the Bible where it's called everlasting, but that's not right. It's eternal means timeless. So I would substitute then, I would neither call it everlasting, nor would I call it eternal anymore. I would just call it timeless. Timeless. The timeless life that you are. That's hiding in death. And so, as we realize that, more and more humans realize that dimension, that is a new evolutionary level that humanity reaches, consciously uniting with that. That means you save the world. The world becomes saved, the world out there. And it's an added bonus. Oh, that's good. And if it were to collapse, ultimately, there is no death. Only the forms dissolve. That is the deepest. That's not conventional reality, of course. In conventional reality, death is everywhere. So, we've had the bad news, which is everybody's going to be wiped out off the planet, okay, which ultimately is not the bad news at all. It's the good news if you realize that how so fleeting it is, that why attach yourself to form as if that were all there is. The little problems of my life obscuring the divinity of who you are, the depths of who you are. All the little stuff of your life, allowing it to completely obscure who you are, how vast you are as an expression of the whole, as an expression of the timeless life, of consciousness itself, how vast you are, and you're allowing little marital troubles and stock market concerns to obscure that. Ultimately, you're allowing the mind, because that's what it is. The stock market isn't the problem. Your thoughts about the stock market are the problem. And the identification of millions of people with their minds have actually created the stock market, but that's another matter. So it's not the problem is never out there. The problem is always your thoughts about it. Out there, you may have a situation that may require action. That's fine. You look at it, become still for a moment, and you act. Action arises out of intelligent action, out of the stillness, that little space of no thought. Alert stillness. You look, okay, and then action, if possible. If no action is possible, you look and you are, that's what is. That's power. You're in touch with power. Not your power, the power. So we do not need to fear the end of the world, nor do we need to long for the end of the world out there. Get to the end of the world in you. The end of the world is the end of reliance and identification with the mind. Because the mind is the world. You don't even know whether there is a world out there, because you can only experience it through your mind. The mind is the world. Attachment to the world really is attachment to your mind, to your thoughts. And so, that is the transition from one state of consciousness to a higher state of consciousness. The relinquishment of that attachment to every thought that arises. Is there a world out there, or is it just our mind? Maybe it comes to the same thing. Waking up means stepping out of identification with thought. And that means death. So simple. That's death. When you don't believe in thoughts anymore, suddenly a spaciousness arises, an awareness arises, which from the point of view of thought is called death. Thought calls it death. Amazing. All this we could call the good news. This is one, sometimes the Gospels in the New Testament are called the good news. And of course, basically that's what it is. The basic message was already there. It became distorted and obscured and misinterpreted. That's all very well, but it's there. All the ancient teachings point to it. And now it comes in a new form, because the expression of it is form. That which it points to is formless, and that out of which the expression of it arises is the formless also. So what is happening here is happening because the universe wants it to happen. Life wants this to happen, this awakening. The awakening out of the dream of form, ultimately. Consciousness is awakening. It's a huge, vast thing. I do not fully understand it, nobody can, but you can be a conscious expression of that movement. And it frees your life from problems. Oh, that's a little bonus. Oh, and it gives you inner peace. Oh, that's another bonus. It makes you a loving being. Oh, that's a bonus. You no longer contribute to spreading unhappiness in the world. Oh, that's good. And you change the world by being an expression of that shift in consciousness, by allowing it to happen through you. You change the world because you are all that, and a few more are not doing it but realizing it, and the world changes. Now, whether in the meantime whether the world as we know it now has to collapse substantially first before the new change can manifest and express itself also through new forms, remains to be seen. It perhaps depends on how quickly the new consciousness arises in humans. And if forms need to collapse that were created by the old consciousness, from Soviet communism to Wall Street, just to take two extremes, but basically the same things, to the political system, the economic system, social, the institutions, and so on, are they going to survive? Some may survive, many probably will not. Is that something to be feared? No. It's enormous change coming in, internally and externally. They go together. So let's die just right now. We've been dying already. A little space of just awareness. I'm pushing aside thought. A bit more. And then you have a space here. No thought. And then after a while you can just bring it into daily life. Be there as space rather than as a form. While you look at a tree, while you look at another human being, while you listen to another human being. Be there as awareness, not as a person. While you sit in your car at the traffic light, be there as spacious consciousness, alert, alive, present, no past in you, no future in you, just aliveness, power. And miraculous things then happen. Suddenly you have a creative idea. Or you encounter another human and there's a loving exchange for just a few seconds. But it all comes out of the space. Making space internally. Continuously. Until it becomes your natural way to live. Space. Initially, you might even want to do this when you're at home. Don't do it out in public, in case they take you away. Hold the space like this. Here's the space. Thoughts separate. Past goes, no past, no future, just this. It's a symbolic gesture. And then you don't need it anymore. And you'll be amazed how many occasions there are when you can be in that state, when before you thought, no, I need to work everything out mentally, I need to judge, define and interpret everything and everybody. What does he really want? What's his intention? No, you just look. And there's far more intelligence there than any kind of thought movement. And if the person is a crook, as the mind might have judged him, it simply means you're not going to engage in a business interaction with him, but you still love him. And he says, can you invest in my whatever short derivative, abacus 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it's called, and you will say, no, thanks, it's fine, I won't. And you love him, because you feel that underneath all his mind stuff, there is a beautiful being also. There is being. There's consciousness.